Gentlemen. Can I call you gentlemen? Oh, thank you. Gentlemen, would you be flattered or freaked out if a ghost tried to flirt with you? Before all you sickos rush to Tinder to see if this is a new feature, by the way, I'm calling all your moms, I want to talk about a ghost who only shows herself to male staff. Is the spirit trying to lead you on? Or is she the manifestation created by those trying to get the lead role? Let's talk about Olive Thomas's ghost. Welcome to Ladies Fright. I'm your host, Joan. Trigger warning. Mentions of suicide and drug use. It's February in 1997's New York City. The new Amsterdam Theater is going through a major renovation to try to bring it back to its opening night glory all the way back in 1903. The place has been completely abandoned since 1983, and Disney was leasing the location with plans for a grand reopening in April. Trouble is, even by February, the lights have not been turned on yet, leaving the male security guard that night with only a flashlight to illuminate his patrol. When he was checking the house being where the audience sits during a show, he saw some movement coming from the stage. When he flashed his light up there, he saw a young woman in a beaded white flapper dress carrying a small blue bottle. Shocked anyone was there, the guard called out, "Hey, you can't be here!" The young woman looked up and made eye contact with him. She slowly walked across the stage, never dropping her gaze. When she got to the end of the stage, she blew the guard a kiss and proceeded to step out onto 41st Street. Issue was, she didn't use the door. She went right through a wall. This is probably the best known sighting of the new Amsterdam Theater's resident ghost, Olive Thomas. Olive Thomas was born October 20th, 1894, and was named Olive Duffy. Well, I think. Through my research, I found several different names. Olive Duffy, Olive R. Duffy, Oleretta, Elaine Duffy. So we'll just go with Olive. She was born in Charleroi, Pennsylvania, which is just over 20 miles outside of Pittsburgh. She stayed there until she was 15, when her father had a tragic accident in the steel mill he worked at. After, she moved in with her maternal grandparents in their home in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, just under 5 miles outside of Pittsburgh. The following year, at just 16, she married factory worker Bernard Thomas. While married, she worked as a factory worker in Pittsburgh, but even that felt like a small town compared to her big ambitions. After only 2 years of marriage, Olive went to visit a relative in New York City and legally separated from Bernard. He claimed their marriage failed because of Olive's strong ambitions to elevate her social status and live in the lap of luxury. Olive officially filed for divorce on the basis of desertion and cruelty. I would argue you running away to live with a family member in New York City would not be desertion on your spouse's part, but I'm not a 1910s lawyer, so what do I know? Either way, Olive was now living in the city that never sleeps. To make it in the big city, she worked at a department store. That was until an interesting opportunity arose. The famous painter and illustrator Howard Chandler Christie had a contest to find his next model, titled "The Most Beautiful Girl in New York City." Of course, Olive signed up, and amazingly, at the young age of 19, she won. She was, by title, the most beautiful girl in all of NYC. This led to her modeling for illustrations, magazines, advertisements, and portraits. One of the most well-known illustrations of her was actually painted after her death, titled Memory of Olive Thomas, or the Lotus Eater, painted in 1920 by Alberto Vargas. Lotus Eater is a reference to a Greek myth of a race of people who lived on an island covered in lotus trees. The people would eat the fruit of the tree and would become apathetic, forgetting their loved ones and home. To call someone a lotus eater means instead of prioritizing their practical needs, they focus on indulgences and luxuries. Without getting ahead of ourselves, this is a very fitting title for Olive's life. Alberto Vargas was very familiar with Olive, since he was Florence Ziegfeld's resident artist. Vargas painted his Ziegfeld girls, who were part of the Ziegfeld Follies. Who was Florence Ziegfeld? And what were the Ziegfeld Follies? What are you wearing? What year is it? I'm scared. Well, calm down. It's okay. You're safe. Florence Ziegfeld Jr. was a Broadway impresario, or someone who finances shows and basically acts as a television producer, but for stage performances. He created a theatrical revue, the Ziegfeld Follies, performed at the New Amsterdam Theater. A theatrical revue is a variety show which has acts including comedy sketches, music, and dances with either no overarching plot or a very loose theme. Some of those acts involved the Ziegfeld girls. Basically, Ziegfeld hired conventionally beautiful women to act in his show. Though it is debated if Ziegfeld sought out Olive or if she asked for the job herself, either way, she was part of the show starting in 1915. She quickly moved up in the ranks. This may be due to her ambition and her natural beauty and her charisma, but I'm sure her affair with Ziegfeld helped seal the deal. Let me be clear, Thomas did not sleep her way to the top. She really couldn't have, since Ziegfeld was sleeping or had slept with several of his female cast. He sounds lovely. She soon joined the cast for the Midnight Frolic. The Frolic was a men-only after-hours show. These men were often famous or influential. Frolic was a more risque show, to say the least. One act we know Olive performed in had a woman wearing a dress made of balloons, and the patrons were encouraged to pop the balloons with their cigars until there were no balloons left to pop. Olive ended her time at the Ziegfeld Follies because Florenz would not leave his movie star wife, Billie Burke, and marry her instead. Hey, on New Year's Eve 2019, heading into the year 2020, how many of you went to a Roaring 20s party? Raise your hands. Okay, a few of you. You can put your hands down now, thank you. Now, I'm sure you all thought you were dressing in your best Great Gatsby cosplay, but actually, Olive Thomas did a lot to popularize that iconic look. She was the first to portray a flapper in the film, appropriately titled, The Flapper. Her debut into film was a serial called Beatrice Fairfax. Her next role was a leading one in a Paramount called A Girl Like That. In 1918, she was signed with Selznick Pictures, which had contracted her to act in 8 films per year. So basically a new film every 6 weeks. She was in 20 films in all. Unfortunately, many of them have been lost to time, and only a few, including The Flapper, can even be viewed today. Between leaving the Follies and becoming a silent movie star, you would think a girl wouldn't have time to date, and you may be right, but that didn't stop Olive. While still working in New York, she met Jack Pickford, the younger brother of the most famous silent film actress of the time and America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford. Olive and Jack were secretly married on October 25th, 1916 in New Jersey. Sorry, I have to do a New Jersey shout out whenever I can. Olive and Jack's relationship was wild. Screenwriter Frances Marin once remarked, quote, "I'd seen her often at the Pickford home, for she was engaged to Mary's brother Jack. 2 innocent-looking children, they were the gayest and wildest brats who ever stirred the stardust on Broadway. Both were talented, but they were much more interested in playing the roulette of life than in concentrating on their careers," unquote. Take a moment to discuss Jack and the Pickford family. Jack was the youngest of 3 and the only boy of his siblings. Born as John Charles Smith, he later changed his surname to Pickford after his eldest sister, Gladys Lewis Smith, changed her name to Mary Pickford. Actually, all the siblings and their mother changed their surname to Pickford. Another surprising fact is America's sweetheart was imported from Canada. Yeah, Mary, along with her siblings, were all born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and came to the US in 1910, when Mary was 18 and Jack was 14. Just to get an idea of how idolized this whole family was, Jack volunteered for the US Navy in 1918 in order to avoid being drafted in Canada. Not sure how that works, but okay. While in the Navy, he acted as a middleman so some of his other fellow soldiers could pay to get cushy non-combat naval assignments. He almost got dishonorably discharged, which I feel like some people don't understand how big of a deal that is. First, to be dishonorably discharged, you need to have committed and been charged with a crime, which would have been considered a felony in civilian courts. You lose your status as a veteran, along with the benefits like housing loans, VA healthcare. You can no longer own a pew-pew. You can also possibly be denied unemployment benefits or federal student loans. The point being, this could ruin a reputation and someone's life. It is a serious punishment. So when Jack's mother, Charlotte, stepped in and prevented this, it would be similar to her coming in and sweeping a major crime under the rug. Even with the carefully curated image the Pickford family had made for themselves, Jack was still very much known as a playboy. So, with the Pickford family influence and Olive's fast rise to fame, the young couple had the means to lean into every vice they could get their hands on. The couple was known for what I would describe today as a very toxic relationship. They were said to be madly in love, but would also have blowout fights and would cheat on each other. Even though Olive was employed, she constantly had little to no savings. The couple worked on opposite coasts, so they didn't get a chance to have a honeymoon due to their work schedules. To try to reconnect and to make up for lost time, the couple went to Paris, France in 1920 on what they called a second honeymoon. On the night of September 5th, Jack and Olive went out partying. When they came back to their room at the Hotel Ritz, they were both very inebriated. According to Jack, he wanted to get some sleep because they were due to be on a flight to London the next day. Olive couldn't sleep, and to try to help settle her restlessness, she began writing a letter to her mother. Jack complained that the desk lamp was too bright and was keeping him up, so Olive went to the bathroom to take some sleeping medication. In there, she found a bottle and took the medication inside. She must have realized she made a huge mistake right away because she screamed out, "Oh my God!" Jack ran in to find that she had taken mercury bichloride, a poison if ingested. There are claims that the bottle was marked with a skull and crossbones, so this should have been easily avoidable. Others claim the bottle's label was in French, so it's understandable why she would be confused. Either way, Jack jumped into action and had her drink water and egg whites to induce vomiting. A doctor was called to the hotel where he pumped Olive's stomach 3 times. After 5 hours, her condition did not improve, so she was brought to a hospital where she passed away 4 days later. The death of Olive Thomas may feel straightforward, but there's a lot of doubt in what actually happened. Many sources I looked at claim the mercury bichloride was medication for Jack's syphilis. Syphilis is an infectious bacteria which spreads through contact with sores. These sores tend to appear on genitals, rectum, and the mouth. This is why the spread of syphilis is usually due to sexual contact. In the 1900s, mercury bichloride was used topically to treat a syphilis infection. However, it was also used as a cleaning solution.
My dad believed in only 2 things: that Greeks should educate non-Greeks about being Greek, and that any ailment, from psoriasis to poison ivy, could be cured with Windex.
Some say Jack contracted syphilis in 1917, the year after Olive and him were married, and was known in some circles as Mr. Syphilis. Others believe Jack may never have had syphilis, and this was just a rumor started by Florence Ziegfeld after Jack started dating another one of his folly girls after Olive's death. There is also the belief that Olive committed suicide using the mercury bichloride because she had contracted syphilis from Jack. With the details of his health being unclear, I do have to mention, Jack died at the age of 36 from progressive multiple neuritis, which is a disease that had attacked all of his nerve centers. This disease could be caused by syphilis, but it could also be caused by alcoholism. Another coincidence that's more interesting than anything is Jack passed away in the same hospital Olive did just 12 years later. There are many other theories on why and how Olive passed away. If you'd like to learn more, I highly suggest watching The Dark and Mysterious Death of Olive Thomas, Hollywood's first scandal, by the channel Mythic Women. I'll have it linked in the description. However, the reason behind her death has very little to do with her haunting. As mentioned in the opening, Olive's ghost has a permanent residency at the New Amsterdam Theater. From the articles I read, it feels like you could ask any male employee and they can tell you about an experience they've had with her. Ushers have claimed that she will ride the elevator with them or playfully move their walkie-talkies around. Conductors will have lights flicker on them right before their first show. In one almost cartoonish encounter, a man was on a lower level and looked over at some stairs, where he saw stocking legs of a woman in heels coming down. She seemed to be taking her time and making a show of it, but once the legs got far enough to see the kneecap, they disappeared. Male patrons have claimed feeling their shirts being tugged or being tapped by someone. Security guards have heard her playing instruments in the orchestra pit. And of course, the story I told at the start with the security guard getting blown a kiss from stage. There's a bit more to that story. The theater had just been bought by Disney. Well, kind of. A bit of a fun fact that I learned was Disney has a 99-year lease on the building, which started in 1993. The New Amsterdam Theater had been abandoned for some time, and Disney hired Dana Amendola to manage restoring the building to its former glory. He was also the one who received a panicked phone call from a security guard the night Olive decided to take center stage. The way Amendola recalled the story, the ghost was actually in a green gown with a beaded headdress, but aside from those details, the story remains the same. She walks across the stage, blows the guard a kiss, and then steps through the wall to exit the stage. Amendola claims the guard was not a theater person, so he would not have known the history of the theater or about the Ziegfeld Follies, and would especially not know about the costumes they wore, which Amendola said the guard described exactly. All of this was way too much for the guard, and he resigned from the position only a week later. I don't know if Amendola is like a bully or he just really needed proof, but he called the clearly terrified guard back 6 months later, and like going through a police lineup, showed him pictures of past performers from the theater. When Olive's photo came up, the guard stopped Amendola and said that was the woman he had seen on stage. Not wanting to have all the night guards quit, it is said the theater will only hire female night guards, since Olive only wants to seem to show herself to the men. She's not a complete nuisance, though. Patrons have admired how the lady usher in the period costume showed them to their seats, only to find out none of the ushers wear costumes. She has also helped people find a booster seat, theory as to why Olive's spirit is staying in the spotlight of the New Amsterdam Theater. In an interview with Emily Cernarker in 2019, Dana said, quote, "I've read that ghosts will take residence in a place she had very fond memories of. While she was here, she was a star, a celebrity. She was with a prominent man. This was probably where she spent the happiest time in her young life." Why do I think she haunts the Amsterdam Theater? Things I thought you'd never ask. To sum it up in one word, superstition. For those of you who've not been to Denny's at 3 a.m. post-opening night, you may not know the culture of theater. Now, you may have guessed from the 2 episodes I have already with references to musicals, I occasionally enjoy seeing a show. I would say I'm more of a tourist to the culture than a theater kid, but more than an observer, since I was in a few shows and theater projects in college. One thing I did take away from my time mingling in the theater department was how many superstitions the theater has. The most well known is the idea of saying break a leg as a way of meaning good luck, which in all other contexts is a really awful thing to wish someone. If you want to hear more about them, I would really love to do a live stream about it. Let me know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. But for this episode, I just want to focus on one, the ghost light. When the show is over and the stage and house lights are turned off for the night, one light remains. In many theaters, a single light bulb on a simple stand will sit at the edge of the stage right before the orchestra pit. This is called the ghost light. The practical reason for this light is so that anyone on stage can see where the end of the stage is and won't fall right into the pit. The reason someone in theater will tell you is the light keeps away the bad spirits, while letting the resident ghost have their own spotlight to put on shows while no one else is around. Since it's also said that every theater is haunted. The origins of the ghost light is also debated. Some say it came from when the stage lights used to be fueled by gas and one flame remained to act as a pilot light. Other tales have them being implemented after a robber came in and fell off the stage, then successfully sued the theater for negligence leading to his injury. The show must go on is an interesting sentiment Broadway has certainly embodied. In the 275 years Broadway has existed, there has been several events which have hit her hard. There was the Great Theater Massacre of 1982, where several historical theaters were knocked down in order to build new commercial buildings. For 30 years, starting in the 80s, the AIDS epidemic took out almost a whole generation of creative people who worked within Broadway. In 2001, Broadway was shut down for 2 days after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. However, 2 days was relatively short compared to the 294 days Broadway was shut down in 2020 due to the COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. While Broadway's lights were dark, there was one light the theaters did leave on. The ghost light changed from a spotlight for acting ghosts to a beacon for the souls who longed to return to the stage. During that time, many in the field thought the ghost light as a symbol of hope, that, like the ghost, the light would welcome them back to the stage. In 2011, the New York Music Festival included a musical written by Matthew Martin and Tim Rilbuto, titled Ghostlight. The plot was about Olive's time in the Ziegfeld Follies, as well as her spirit haunting the New Amsterdam Theater. Well, at least that's what I believe the plot is about, even though I saw the musical listed in several articles about Olive. Finding any information about it was very difficult. Apparently, the musical was not well received, and I could tell that from the 2 reviews I read about it that both said it was way too long. Seeing the title of the musical, I assumed it would be a metaphor which would help drive home the point that Olive's ghost goes along with the superstitious nature of theater culture. However, I can't really find why the musical about her life is called Ghostlight. I can assume the connection, but I don't have evidence for it. I'm not giving up on the idea that superstition is the driving force of Olive's ghost. A superstition is a belief that a certain consequence is based on a supernatural causation. If you were to travel to New Amsterdam Theater, you may be handed a pamphlet outside promoting the current show inside. On it, there will be an image of Olive with a note, "A ghost among us." If you go inside, you will find a framed picture of her at the front entrance. If you somehow get backstage, you will see another picture of her at the back entrance. Staff, and especially cast members, have made it customary to say hello and goodbye to Olive's photo when entering and exiting the building, all to keep her ghost happy. Most rituals are done in the theater to ensure the success of the show. So to keep Broadway alive, we'll leave a ghost light on and greet the photos of dear Olive. Because as we all know, the show must go on. But what do I know? Just some lady talking about some frights. Thanks for joining me. This, not gonna lie, was difficult. I have recorded this now technically 3 times. I've sat and read this script 4 times. The first 2 times, I made a stupid technical error and none of the sound was recorded. And then I figured that out and I sat down and I read the whole script and I didn't press record. So there's this time and I'm really hoping that you're all seeing this. I would really appreciate, especially on this one at the very least, if you don't do it any other time, please do it now, to like and or subscribe and or comment, just so I know that you're seeing this work that I put into it, because it has been a lot of work. This is probably coming out around the holiday season, so I do want to wish everyone a happy holiday and whatever you choose to celebrate. And yeah, if you want to hear more of my voice, I certainly don't want to hear more of my voice tonight, but if for some reason you would like to, you can join me on all social media just by finding the link tree in the description, clicking on that, and joining me wherever you can find me. And yeah, as I said, thank you so much. Bye.